Welcome back to My Mythical Meta, your gaming podcast that's actually a secret friendship podcast. I'm Travis, and I'm joined this week by two other Metapods, my brother Benjamin.
Hello.
And my good friend Randy.
Heya.
Derek is missing this evening. He is playing Factorio.
We know where he is exactly, actually. Discord snitched on him.
We know exactly where he is. And having Steam open snitched on him. But we called him, asked him if he wanted to pod. He said he was beat, needed to unwind. And we hope that he is servicing his mental health this evening.
There you go.
What you guys been up to?
Comic Palooza.
Ooh, I was so sad to miss Comic Palooza. How did it go?
It was awesome. Met a lot of cool people. Met some friends of the show. Several people signed up after meeting us. Sold lots of dice.
Yeah, I was glad to see that subscriber count going up while I was in Detroit.
Yeah.
It was very nice to see that count.
Why were you in Detroit?
I was in Detroit because I went to a wonderful wedding. Congratulations to Aaron Rose and Steve. We had a wonderful time at their wedding and traveling around Detroit for the weekend. Kristen kept saying, I really love Detroit. She was like, the traffic's not that bad. And I was like, yeah, because it's Houston with 1/4 of the people living in it.
I mean, I still wouldn't live in Detroit, but, no shade, Detroit.
It was really cool. Aaron Rose's house literally has a pizza place next door, a gas station next door, a bar next door. They bike to all their friends' places to all the other bars they hang out at. It was a really cool little neighborhood that they've got going.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty neat.
Speaking of subscriber counts, I have been doing a little snooping through my YouTube analytics, and 78% of our viewers on YouTube are not subscribed.
Wow. What?
78%. So that means lots of people are finding our stuff and clicking on our videos, but that they are not subscribed. So, if you do like what we're putting out, and you like our episodes, and you like our content, please hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, hammer that bell icon as hard as you can. We need to appease the artificial intelligence gods in order to get our stuff out there to more people. If you are listening to My Mythical Meta on an audio platform, please sound off in the 5-star reviews. Let us know you're here by leaving a 5-star review. Every review extends our reach through the algorithm. Unfortunately, Spotify does not have as detailed analytics as YouTube does. Please, 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 if you are on Apple Podcasts or Audible or Spotify directly, let us know. Leave a 5-star review. Engage in the interact sections, in the after show polls. Let us know you're there, and we appreciate every listener, obviously. We hope that what we're doing is helpful, especially now that the month of Magic is over. We spent May talking about Magic the Gathering, talking about deck building and some cool gameplay concepts, and we are going to go back to our roots today to talk about a couple of social topics. We dedicate this return to our roots to our patron, Dahlia. Dahlia, thank you for joining the show, and thank you for supporting us through the month of Magic, and we hope we can help you and help others with some great social content and be the friendship podcast that you want us to be. If you, listener, want to join our Patreon and become a patron, you can find us at patreon.com/mymythicalmeta. Benjamin, what's the first perk?
The first perk is that you get 20% off at eldoradogaming.com. If you are not lucky enough to be able to find us at a convention near you where you get special convention prices, the next best thing is to use your 20% off code that you get from being a Patreon. Go to eldoradogaming.com, and buy some of our shiny math rock.
Yes, we have got some beautiful new products coming in the next few weeks as well. By joining our Patreon, you also receive early and ad-free content. I put everything on the Patreon a few days early before anybody on YouTube or Spotify gets anything. Our patrons also get access to the My Mythical Meta Discord server. This is where we are right now recording this episode, and we're very active. You'll also find a couple other perks and documents and polls available only to our patrons. Because Derek is out this week, we have got instead Randy with a surprise Patreon perk. Randy, what will our patrons get this month?
Well, this is an extra special one because even though it's this month's reward, they'll get it the next month.
That's right.
In July. So, the reward is a meet and greet with Travis and I at the top of Mount Fuji, July 24th. Be there or be square.
Yes, if you join our Patreon and you let us know in the Discord where you are in Japan in July, we will try to find you. We are going to be at the top of Mount Fuji on July 24th. We're kind of spreading our feelers out there to create a little Sleepless in Seattle action.
I mean, probably. I can't guarantee the 24th. Around there. Send us a Discord message. We'll get it figured out.
Yes. We are going to plan. I mean, guys, it's going to be a big affair. Okay? Banners, flags, merch.
Yeah, I'm packing up an entire gift shop on my back.
An Instagram post, most likely.
Oh, yeah.
I'm telling you.
Tons of pictures on our trip. Like I said, we'll be there for 3 weeks.
Anyone at the top of Mount Fuji on July 24th, you're going to make it onto Eldorado Gaming's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, X, Threads.
We'll put you on the homepage.
Sure.
For a day.
Sure.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Sure, why not?
If someone came all the way to Mount Fuji and met us there, they deserve to be on Neil's website's homepage for at least like a week or something like that.
Yeah. I think that's a great Patreon perk. A meet and greet at the top of Mount Fuji, July 24th.
I will buy you a bottle of oxygen.
Ooh, very nice. All right, today's topic is bringing a new person to your already established friend group. Sometimes that's a romantic person or a romantic interest, and a lot of times it's just a friend. Maybe you met at work or you met at school and you want to bring a new person to your group. You want to combine your two networks, combine your two social circles. And sometimes it goes great and sometimes it goes poorly. Benjamin, what is it like bringing a new person to your group?
You're a little nervous. You know, if you're bringing a new person, it's because you have some interest in hanging out with this new person, or maybe you already hang out with them a lot in another circle, and you already have this long-standing commitment and relationships with this group, and you're hoping to merge the two, maybe so that you can enhance the time you have with your friends, or maybe because you're hoping that you can deepen your friendship with the new person. But whatever the reason is, it's a little nerve-wracking. You're never really sure if the people are going to catch on, if your old friends are going to like your new friend, or whatever your purpose is, if it's going to be fulfilled. There's always that chance that you're setting up people that you like and care about for a bad time. And so I think that's the first thing I feel is when I show up, I'm always nervous for the people involved.
Yeah, those nerves and those fearful feelings of we've talked a lot on this show about how time is an investment and we want a payoff from it. So if we devote time to a social experience, we want it to be good. Yeah. But if we're throwing in unknown variables with each other, we don't know how that's going to work out. Randy, what do you want to add here? What have your experiences been like in this?
So I was just thinking about this, and I feel like maybe I have a little bit different perspective. I mean,
Sure. That's why we have a show.
I moved around a lot, so I feel like growing up, I was always the new person coming in.
Oh, yeah.
Because on average, about every 3 years, pretty much from elementary to high school, like every 3 years we moved.
Mm-hmm.
So, every 3 years it was like, okay, you know nobody, and it was always like you make that first friend and then they bring you in.
Mm-hmm.
And then you might make another friend and then that's a separate circle all of a sudden. So you're like trying to learn 2 new friend groups at once. And, they're trying to merge you in and make sure you're a good fit. And it's a lot of, pressure, it feels like, I guess, when you're the new person, especially if you're doing the new person on several things at once. But it's just, you got to make sure that you don't overthink it. And if the first person that brought you into the group likes you for who you are, then the rest of the people in that group will probably feel the same.
Yeah. I was thinking back when we were talking literally the first episode of the show, episode 1, and we were saying if you want to get your friend into your game, if they're your friend, it's likely that you share some common interests.
Mm-hmm.
And the same is true with a friend's friends. If you meet somebody new and you like them, and then they bring you to their friends, well, they probably share some characteristics. That's why they're friends. So
Exactly.
it's likely that you're going to find some connections, some ways to gel with the new friend's other group, if you're the new person coming in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, if, in this circle of friends, it's like, if you're a tabletop or just a video game nerd.
Yeah.
And your friend is a video game nerd, their friends are probably also going to be video game nerds.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty unlikely that the friend that you are a video game nerd with is going to bring you to, his other side social circle that's like, oh, they're a bunch of jocks. And they all do like fantasy sports, and as deep as they go into video games is like
Madden.
Call of Duty rage matches.
I mean, you say that, but I did consider bringing Derek into my fantasy baseball league. But
Yeah, but that's because Derek shares the thrill of, I guess,
competition.
that kind of
the analytics
competition
and
the analytics
and the study, maybe.
Yeah.
That's I think where Derek is more interested. Now he may not have much to talk to those other friends about. Oh yeah, so-so's doing real good this year.
Right.
He's like, I don't know, I'm looking at this year's stats.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but yeah, typically if your friend is I don't know
it's like if you've discovered a common interest with a new person, then it's likely that new person's friends are also going to share some common interests.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're bringing a new person in, I kind of want to make this point. Be optimistic. Like, when you're going in to meet new people, or if you're going in to introduce that new person to your group of friends, be optimistic. Like, go in with a good mindset. Benjamin has talked about this in the past too. Just go in ready to try, ready to buy in and ready to invest. Because if you go in worried about how bad everything's going to go, that energy is going to go a long way and potentially ruin the interactions.
That's true.
Ruin the meet, or ruin the potential bonds that your new friend and your old group could form.
Mm-hmm.
Just got a Discord thing. Derek has switched from Factorio to Mass Effect. We wish him the best.
I hope the Reapers get him.
You hope the Reapers get it?
I'm just saying.
I wanted to talk about some experiences we've had in the past of introducing new people to our friend group. Or, like Randy mentioned, being that new person being introduced to a friend group. We'll share some of these situations, some of these experiences we've had, and then we'll talk about when it works out and when it doesn't. Benjamin, start us off. Tell us one situation where you either brought somebody new into a group, or if you were the new person being introduced.
Well, the first one that comes to mind is one I actually think you can probably help me talk about a little bit, and that's when I joined this group. Because the three of you had already had, established relationships. Y'all had been hanging out for years and years and years. And then I moved to Houston in, I guess, 2017, several years after y'all were getting together, playing games and such. And I didn't really know how it was going to go, And we've talked a lot about how we had different power levels on decks and things, but also, there's a lot of ways in which our experiences did not overlap. And, it was a little touch and go at first, I think. Just not because anybody was rude or anything, just because...
Right.
You gotta adjust and figure out. Yeah. So what was your experience? Bringing me into your friend group.
Obviously, I was very optimistic. At that point, you and I had kind of had a a reconnection, a resurgence.
Yeah.
We had kind of spent our college years not really interacting at all. And it was that year in Alpine where I was like, I'm desperate for a friend. And my brother lives close enough where he can be a built-in friend. He has a family obligation to be my friend if I need one. So let me reconnect with him. And I do think the two of us did find more than just Magic to bond on.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, we talked more about lots of things when we were when we were hanging out.
Yeah, I was there when you called Arden to ask permission to marry Kristen.
Yes,
We were in
that
the
was
cars together.
You know, we were together in the driveway. I had called before and left a message, and that was Arden calling me back.
Yeah.
That was nerve-wracking too. I mean, speaking of joining a new friend group, joining a family.
Yeah.
You know, that is nerve-wracking in itself too. So, you know, you and I bonded over Magic, of course, and then I had gotten Derek and Randy into Magic too, and that was going to be our activity. You know, what common interest do I know that these four people have? You know, you, me, Derek, Randy. That's going to be the thing that we can best create bonds out of the quickest.
Right.
So that was the activity we did, and I think, man, was the very first time we played at Momo's together?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think
Sounds right.
So, I mean, we probably had snacks lying around. We probably had sodas lying around. We just talked about, you know, as we played, we just talked about the creatures we liked, the strategies we liked, and we learned a little about each other. You know, you probably learned a little bit about Derek and about Randy by watching how they played and how they piloted their decks at that point.
Yeah, it was that the day that we went to see what's the movie with all the different alien races all stuck together in a giant city.
Oh my god,
space.
Valerian?
Yes.
You were with us for that?
Yeah.
Yeah, Valerian, the City of 1,000 Planets or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, what a weird movie. I have not seen it since that day.
No, me neither. I've never rewatched it.
I still say that they miscast the main guy from that. Him and Chris Pratt should have been swapped.
For Star-Lord?
No, Chris Pratt was in that movie where he woke up Jennifer Lawrence from Deep Sleep, you know?
Yeah.
It was
Passengers.
all creepy. Passengers, yeah. That movie, Chris Pratt and that other dude, I forget his name, they should have been swapped because that dude could have played creepy a lot better.
Yes.
And Chris Pratt could have played like this space cop a lot better, I think.
Dude, you're so right. You're so right.
I think we said it that day in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
So that's what I remember, Benjamin, about that meeting, is that I just, I was optimistic. I said, we're gonna play a great game together because we all love this game.
Yeah.
And even if Benjamin wins, we're gonna learn and we're gonna have fun with it anyway. I mean, how was it for you?
I mean, I think it was fine. I think movies are a good way to take the pressure off because you get this shared experience that then y'all can all talk about. But there's long periods of time where the focus is not on you.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say that just sitting in front of a screen is a great way to get to know people. But for a first meeting, now you've always got this thing you can relate back. Hey, remember when we did this thing together? And you know it's a movie they've seen. So that especially works out if it was a good movie. I don't think we've talked about Valerian since then. But,
no. I don't think Valerian has come up at all since we watched it.
But,
it's funny you say that because it wasn't the first time I met Nikki, Randy, but at my birthday when we all watched all 3 Lord of the Rings movies, it was something we had all seen before, but we were able to talk about each movie as if it were the first time because we had a new person with us.
Yeah.
Who was also a fan. Nikki had already seen the movie. She loved them too. And so we got to see her reactions to these movies for the first time. And that was a lot of fun too. A great way to get to know her a little bit more.
Yeah. And she's a hardcore extended edition or nothing.
Yep, and that's what we did too.
It was so long.
It's been 3 days.
Yeah, that was the first time I had met Nikki as well, and
oh, yeah.
I thought it was a fun time. So I think that that's a great way to bond with people. Doesn't have to be movies.
No, not at all.
I think comedy shows, going to stand-up comedy, because if it's good, right, you talk about it and you laugh and you have a great time. If it's bad, well, you got something to talk about now.
Yep, you talk about, you laugh.
Yep.
At how bad it was.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's really helped this group is, we typically get together to play games or things like that, but I feel like we have enough shared experiences that it's been good. And through this friendship, I've gotten to do things with just Randy or just Derek sometimes, and now we have those shared experiences. And so, yeah, I think it's been good, and I like the way that it can grow. And that's something I think that a goal of bringing a friend into the group is that eventually you want to assimilate them into the group so that they're not dependent on you.
Yeah.
So, I think that's something to keep in mind early. I think is that they are dependent on you, and that's been one of my experiences in a lot of. You mentioned earlier, I think, introducing exes to or introducing love interests. They don't have to be exes.
Yeah, introducing romantic partners to your family.
Yeah, like they are so dependent on you early on just because they don't know your family, you do, right? And unlike introducing them to a friend group, you're the only thing they have in common. Your romantic interest may have nothing in common with your father.
Yeah.
And so taking a few whatever steps you can to make sure that it's a comfortable meeting, I think is very helpful. Do y'all have any advice on how to do that? How to make sure that meeting is comfortable?
So every time I have ever invited a romantic interest to meet family, I always have to, it was kind of this way when I met my roommate's family first, during Hurricane Ike. During Hurricane Ike, I stayed with my roommate Richard's family, and he told me before meeting them, he was like, that I rely on sarcasm as a defense mechanism. You know that about me, and he's like, you know that about my humor, that it's all sarcasm, and he says, if you think I have a cutting wit, a cutting sarcasm, he said, I'm the runt in my family when it comes to like having a quip ready to tear somebody down or make fun of somebody. He was like, I'm the runt. So if you think I'm good at that, you are really going to need some emotional calluses with my family. And if he hadn't told me that going into that meeting, I don't think I would have lasted the 3 days that I did. Because he's right. They were very cutting, very quick. And because he had warned me about it, I knew that was their defense, that was their icebreaker, that was their humor, that was their way of, I don't know, endearment, affection, whatever. And I knew that I had the freedom to give back. And that was because he had prepped me on what the norms were for his family. I have always tried to do the same thing when I introduce a romantic interest to my family too. I tell them, especially with our mom's side of the family, we're game players, we're talkers, we are almost always doing something with our hands while we're talking. Yep. So it's hand and foot, it's sequence, it's a board game, Carcassonne, it's something. But the rest is talking. My grandma is going to tell a story about last week when she drove across Houston to have lunch with two of her friends from 25 years ago. She's also going to tell a story about how she met those people 25 years ago and they did something else. And I was like, and you got to be ready to ask a question. You got to be ready to share a story. Like, because they're going to ask you stuff. They want to find commonalities.
Yeah.
And we were talking before the show with my last most significant ex. She was really kind of shy, cloistered up, nervous about how it was going to go. And those nerves really showed through. People would, my grandma or my grandpa would just ask her a question, how many siblings do you have? 3. And then she just wouldn't say anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it's like you've got to give a little, you've got to speak up and be brave. I think, I told Kristen that when, my grandparents were the first people I introduced Kristen to. We had been dating for maybe 3 weeks. And I was like, hey, we're going to meet my grandparents at a Greek restaurant nearby the school. She met Momo and Pawpaw before she met our parents.
Yeah.
And I just told her, they're going to ask you questions. You know, you have got to be brave, and you've got to ask them questions. Because they're ready to talk. They are, and I think I probably told her, like, they are ready to love you. You just have to, like, let it happen. So I do think, you know, it's certainly not easy, and Kristen was certainly nervous for that meeting, but Kristen was brave, and she smiled and laughed and talked, and, you know, it's kind of amazing. I've never felt like Kristen relies on me in our family gatherings.
Well, certainly not anymore, because we like her more than we like you.
This is also true. People were joking in our family before we even got married. They were like, if this goes wrong, we know it's Travis's fault.
Right.
I'm glad to know that my mom's not the only one that says that.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
I'm your flesh and blood, Mom.
You know, but that's kind of what she did that made everybody love her, is be outgoing and still be herself. She is the same person among her friends as she is among me, as she is among her family, as she is among my family.
Yeah.
You know, she's friendly, and she listens, and she asks questions. You know, that's it. You know, weirdly, I don't think that's too much to ask when you're meeting a new person, is be interested in them.
Well, I wonder how much of this has to do with introverts versus extroverts.
Yeah.
And we can't just tell our audience, hey, when you meet new people, be an extrovert.
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
I know that there was a similar experience. You know, Sarah is much more introverted than Kristen, and we had a similar experience when we met Momo. We went to your play, and Momo
Which one?
was there. It was.
Was it An Ideal Husband?
Yes.
Okay.
See, either that one or the importance of being. No, it must have been An Ideal Husband. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we'd only been dating a couple weeks, and Momo was there telling us what to not name our kids based on names in the program.
Oh my god.
And
that is so funny.
And I know that Sarah was nervous, but she was polite, and she interacted, and she was willing to talk. And so I think that you're right, actually. We can tell people that, hey, it's okay to be introverted, but it's not okay to be scared.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's okay to feel scared, but there's just something about being willing to put yourself out there, and it is a lot of energy. Like, I get it that
Yeah.
putting yourself in that situation where you are meeting new people is an energy drain for introverts. But if you maybe some steps you can take is, make sure you've eaten enough, make sure you have a source of caffeine handy, or
a candy bar,
right?
Make sure
enough
that
sleep the night before.
Yep. Yeah. I was going to say the same kind of things. Make sure that you've had your time to recharge beforehand.
Yeah. And if you are the person introducing an introvert to a new group, try to control the time. Give them opportunities to get away for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Have your getaway excuse ready when it's been 3 or 4 hours and you can tell that their energy level's dropping off. And as much as we were saying that, hey, you've never felt like you had to be responsible for Kristen, you still were at the beginning, right? And if you weren't looking out for her in those early interactions where you're the only one she knew, then that would put her in a terrible situation. So I think being ready to step in when it's no one's fault that things are, that it's the end of the night and time for the interaction to end, so it ends on a good note and she's invited back.
I do still do that when the family gathering has reached a lull. I'll kind of look down at my watch and be like, well, look at the time. Gotta hit the road before it gets dark.
Right.
Dusty train.
Yeah, the old Angleton Danbury excuse of, I don't want to drive while it's dark,
Right. Gotta look out for deer.
Look out for the other guy. We got to get home before all the bad drivers come out.
Right.
Yeah.
So
another time that I was thinking about, this was a kind of a funny introduction. This was actually several years ago, before Randy met Nikki. I attempted to set him up with a lovely teacher friend that I had, and my attempt was that we were all going to go to Dave & Buster's together. Me and Derek and Randy love Dave & Buster's like a stupid amount. We'll spend like $100 and leave with candy. Actually,
and a mug with Dave & Buster's logo
exactly.
on it.
A sticky hand that you can stick to the wall.
Right.
But I was like, this is, Randy, this is going to work. Don't worry. I'm going to invite her and you. I've told you both that I want y'all to meet. I think y'all are going to hit it off. And then my teacher friend invited a second teacher friend to also come. And this second teacher friend, she is super energetic, super outgoing, ready to talk like all the time. But I didn't think that was what Randy was after, and what ended up happening was this second friend was super energetic and chatty, but she ended up kind of blocking Randy's attempt to talk to my first teacher friend.
Yeah.
Womp womp womp.
Yeah, anyway, just in case any of them ever listen to this, we're gonna cut their names for posterity.
Right.
It didn't go according to plan.
Yeah.
Now, maybe that's because Dave & Buster's itself is too loud and energetic for people to talk to each other.
I mean, I feel like it's a good place because it's casual. You're interacting through a game.
Uh-huh.
I mean, like, me and Nikki's second date, which was almost kind of a first date, because our first date was very much like we went to a museum and it was like, let's like suss each other out a bit.
Okay, I like
and then,
this.
And then our second date was Dave & Buster's. And so it was like, you're more or less forced to interact with one another playing air hockey or a fighting game or you're in a cooperative kind of game trying to win tickets and root for one another. So I think, like those kind of arcades are a great place for people to kind of, have fun and get to know each other.
Yeah.
One of my first outings with her family was at Dave & Buster's.
Well, never mind.
Like
maybe Randy and Dave & Buster's go well together.
Except for that once.
Except it just didn't work out this time.
Yeah, when I met a lot of her family, she has 11 brothers and sisters. No, she's one of 11. She has 10 brothers and sisters, and I think 8 of them were there.
Wow.
So, that was like, for me, it felt like a lot of pressure because, you're trying to not impress the family, but get them to like you.
No, I know what you mean, though. Like, form bonds. You're trying to form a bond with 11 people?
Yeah.
That can be stressful.
Yeah. So it was good because we were able to, like, play games together. I could, play one game with one person for a little bit, and then, we all sat around playing the little, coin pusher machines for like an hour.
Yeah.
And we were all trying to help each other with that. So, I think it's good because it just a lot of small interactions to kind of like nudge it along.
Yeah, for sure. Was Nikki's introduction to us karaoke at Derek's Kristen's Honey Roast? Was that the first time we met her?
Yes. I did text her to confirm, and she said yes. That is
okay.
The first time that she met y'all.
Okay, so karaoke was that. I remember having a ton of fun. Did she sing? I'm trying to remember if she sang at all.
I think she did with one of the Kristens, or it was like when there was like a big group of girls
I think
up there
so.
Singing. She was pretty shy. I don't know why. She's great at karaoke. I've actually heard, I guess at some karaoke bar that she went to once in like Boston, like they would like record it for you.
Whoa, that's cool.
And so she had like recordings, and I heard, I'm like, this is really good. Like, like you should like, like
get up there,
karaoke,
belt it
do
out.
this. And she's like, no, I'm not good. I'm like, no, this is really good. But I think she had those initial butterflies. Yeah. Now she's much more outgoing.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe now she would, like, not speak up, but,
Maybe that was a good meeting because she was able to see all of us just, like, be crazy.
Act a fool, yeah.
Yeah, she was able to watch all of us act fools. And so whatever she did afterwards would be fine. Whatever song she sang or whatever she said or did was, well, I've seen you sing With Arms Wide Open. I've seen you sing Shallow when Derek and I did the Lady Gaga Bradley Cooper duet.
Yeah, I thought y'all were doing 90s...
Yeah, dad rock.
Dad rock? Okay.
Divorced dad rock.
A lot of Nickelback, Creed.
Exactly. Late 90s, early 2000s rock.
With arms wide open.
Benjamin, you got any more?
Any more what?
Stories.
Well, sure. I could go on and on.
Give us one more.
Okay, so when I was in law school, I joined a couple I joined several groups for the first time and had different experiences, but one in particular, maybe one that didn't go so well. I joined an accountability group through my church, and it was a bunch of guys that I actually already knew, all of them in different contexts, and one of them has actually been a guest on this show before, and he invited me. Yeah, he invited me to join this accountability group where, you know, they get together, talk about things they might be struggling with, encourage each other and all that.
Yeah.
And the dynamic in that group and the norms and the things that they expected each other were, I guess, understood between them, but not necessarily clearly communicated with me. And so I, you know, ended up kind of making some people mad and not really comporting myself the way that it was, I guess, expected. And I had a rough summer that summer at because of that. And, you know, hurting some friendships. Now, nothing that could not eventually be dealt with, but there were several weeks of people being mad at each other and stuff because of that. So,
wow.
Yeah, I think it's really important, especially in groups like that where above all else the intention is deep emotional connection with this group, that it's really important to have open communication about expectations, about when something is bothering you, to be upfront about it early, just all the good communication stuff that we've talked about throughout this podcast over the last year. I think it's really important to have that sort of session zero with your group, even if it's not an RPG, even if it's you're hanging out for other reasons, but just establishing those that baseline of expectations, I think, can really help things go smoothly as they grow.
You know, Benjamin, I didn't know you had that experience. I went through something very similar when I was doing Bible study at UST.
Oh yeah?
Oh yeah. I attended Bible study pretty regularly in my freshman year, and I was doing altar serving, and I was doing a couple other things. And at the end of that year, I was asked by the Bible study missionaries, we had a group called Focus, and they asked me to be, quote unquote, a disciple. And it was going to be one of my jobs to lead the next year's Bible study.
Oh, wow.
But part of that, like you said, was this different level of emotional connection. And then what happened at the beginning of my sophomore year was the guy that I had formed that deep emotional connection with my freshman year. Well, he left and it was a new missionary.
Oh, yeah.
Then this new missionary, like, I don't even know if it was a church thing. Maybe it was just a bunch of personal quirks, but he just really rubbed me the wrong way. And in college, when somebody rubs you the wrong way, you just say, yeah, nah, I'm good.
Right.
You know, it's not high school anymore. I'm not forced to hang out with you. You know, I'm not forced to take any classes with you. I can move along. And so I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. So let's talk about our guidelines for new introductions. Like Benjamin just said, establish norms.
Well, no matter how serious the group is, I think every group has certain dynamics. Like what you mentioned earlier about how, was it Richard that you stayed with?
Yes.
His family during
Richard and his family.
And so, like, he set up that guideline for you and said, hey, in my family, we are all sarcastic and biting and quick-witted, and you need to be ready for that. He was telling you what the norms of that group were.
Right.
You know, that when they're saying these things, they aren't trying to diss you, they're trying to connect with you. It's just their way of talking.
Yeah.
And, you know, like you did with Kristen, hey, when we get together, you know, we're always going to be talking about some experience and playing a game and also carrying on this conversation and asking questions. And so every group has dynamics and has expectations on and certain communication quirks. And if you take a moment to just think about what are the things about this group that might be different than other group settings, and go ahead and communicate those things to the new person, and vice versa. If you know that there's certain quirks about this new person that may not translate well to this new group, go ahead and tell the new people. Tell the established group, like, hey, this person, I know we like to joke about this one thing, it's like the one thing they're sensitive about, let's try to lay off.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And so no matter what the level of formality or depth of a group is, I think it can always be helpful to take a moment and think about how the group dynamics exists and communicate those back and forth and just kind of establish the norms for that group. You know, how are we going to treat each other?
Yeah. And then prepping the individual that you're bringing, and then prepping the group that you're bringing the new person to.
Yeah.
You know, Randy, I remembered a funny thing, and I don't know if you or even Nikki remembers it, but when we met Nikki, Kristen was pregnant. We had not yet had Marin, and we hadn't named Marin yet. And then we met at that Olive Garden, do you remember, for lunch? I mean, it's okay. But I made some joke about how I didn't like the name Angel. And Nikki was like, was it her brother or her sister?
It's her sister's name.
Nikki was like, that's my sister's name. And I was like, it won't be my daughter's name. I mean, and there's no way you could have prepped me for that.
No.
Okay, Randy, tell me all the names of Nikki's siblings so that I don't make a crack about one of their names.
Yeah. I mean, her youngest brother has the same name as one of our pet cats.
Really?
Or
Mr. Business?
No. No, the one that I had with my parents, Logan.
Logan. Okay.
Yeah. One of her brother's name is Logan. And I was like, oh, that's my cat's name. because at that point we didn't have either one of our cats.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah. Good times.
Some more suggestions for bringing new groups together. Choose an activity that is mutually enjoyable. Food is great. Meat over a meal. You know, if you can find a food that everyone is cool with, do that. You know, have lunch. Let your person kind of sit one or two people in so that they're close to the center. They don't have to be the center person. It doesn't have to be an interrogation, but make sure that you're not in between. I don't know. That's what I would do. What would you guys do?
Yeah.
Like, I would try to sit at the end of the table and make Kristen sit one in.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe not at the end, but I would try to have Kristen sit closer in, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I think that makes sense. I just never thought about it. I always try to sit between that person or across from them.
Yeah.
That way they can talk to me, but they're also sitting next to someone new.
Yeah, that's good too.
Yeah. But I like to give them that out of, hey, if nothing else, you can talk to me. I'm right there.
Yeah. And like I said before, it's not easy, but I think it's always going to have a better ending when that outside person, that new person, you got to be brave. Yeah. And make sure that you are charged up and ready to go in to ask and answer questions. Because that's what that first meeting is. It's an opportunity to form bonds. And if you're quiet and closed off, then you're not going to form bonds and it's not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really hard, but hopefully some of the people listening are in that position and can realize, like, you know, sometimes it's just worth it to do hard things. Like,
yes.
And when you do hard things, you get better at it.
I can do hard things. Start self-affirming. Doing hard things is going to have a payoff. It's hard for a reason, and if you can form bonds with these new people, then you can have more friends. You can have new friends. I mentioned food. Yeah, let's go back and talk about more mutually enjoyable activities.
So in addition to food, we've kind of mentioned several times that we were getting people involved in activities that our friends were already doing, like playing games, like doing karaoke, like
arcade.
Yeah, going to Dave & Buster's or going to the movies. And I think that finding something, you know, you want that first, especially the first time that your new person hangs out with an old group, you want that to be doing something that both the new person and the old group like, so that they're both in their element and have something to bond over. Because let's say, as an example, your old group is a golf group. You all get together to play golf. And you're also trying to teach this new person how to play golf. That may not be the first time you want them to all hang out, because they may not jive well doing an uncomfortable activity that they're not, you know, even if they're willing to learn, they're not at the same level. It's not their element yet.
There's like a teaching or learning dynamic that jumps in there too that can start muddling the relationship that they have.
Yeah.
The relationship that they could have.
Right. So maybe
becomes this one of teacher-student instead of equals.
Exactly. So maybe you invite them to get drinks after the golf game, or you invite everybody over to watch a different sport, you know, at Buffalo Wild Wings or something. And find the thing that's mutually enjoyable instead of throwing one or the other, right? It's the same as inviting your old group of friends to go watch your new friend in whatever it is they do that your old group is uncomfortable with, right? Like, everybody's different. I have different hobbies than y'all do. Each of you has different hobbies from each other. You know, it's totally fine to be a little different from the group you hang out with. But it's probably not the way you want to be introducing new friends and old friends. Find that thing that they have in common and introduce them that.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Randy, anything you want to add here?
No, I think y'all kind of covered it real well.
Randy, what did you feel when me and Derek introduced you to like Michael and our D&D group? How did that make you feel since you had never played before?
So I think at that point I didn't even know you really well.
Yeah,
Derek
that's true.
Was my connection in, and even then I met him through another mutual friend. But yeah, I was hanging out with Derek, and then he mentioned that he played D&D with you and some other people.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've always wanted to try that.
Yeah.
Like I wanted in. I was like, I've always wanted to try that, hoping I would get invited.
Yeah.
and I did, and so I knew of you because of band.
Right.
For the very first year. But at this point, you think you had already gone off to college, and
wow, really? We were already. I was already in college when you started playing D&D with us.
I thought so.
Wow, I thought it was earlier than that, but you might be right.
I could be wrong. That was 2007, 2008. So
okay, yeah. I mean, I graduated in 07, so but I was still coming down to play D&D for sure.
Yeah. I couldn't remember. Like I said, I knew of you because you were in the school for 1 year that I was there.
Yeah,
and then you graduated. Anyway, and I knew one of the guys there, Matt, but the rest of it was. I didn't really know you that well. I didn't know Michael that well. And, I was nervous, but I didn't know how to play the game. Right. I had never played. I didn't know, really what to do. It was a new game on top of being a new group.
Right.
So I was really lost. That was an interesting first night, but I still really did enjoy hanging out. And so, that's why I wanted to do it again.
Yeah.
And of course, it got better once we figured out, Matt, why would you make his character a secret agent for the big bad?
Yeah.
And then we revamped it, and then, I had my first D&D character who, I still remember him to this day.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, when we still played D&D for several years as a group together after that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
long
through
time.
college.
I mean, and that's been something that has lasted to this day. Me, you, and Derek still play D&D to this day.
Yeah.
Or other tabletop RPGs. So I mean, it wasn't scary, but it was was it new and kind of nerve-wracking? Yeah, but I just tried to be myself, and everything worked out fine, and
yeah,
y'all were really nice and stuff like that, and.
Aww.
I mean, I figured y'all would be because, if y'all were friends with Derek, I'm friends with Derek. It makes sense that he's not going to have a bunch of jerk friends.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So, and y'all were all real, inviting and, helpful and stuff like that, so.
Well, cool. I'm glad to know that we were a good group to help bring in a new person. Listeners, guys, when I said back to our roots, I meant it. We have got news from the Warfront. Guys, wasn't that nice to hear the old song of our people again?
Music to my ears.
To dive back into Reddit after this month of magic, after what seems like forever, and to sift through the true cesspool to really find a gem. I think we found something really interesting. We have got a post today from RRPG, and it was not a complaint about other people or asking how to talk to another person. This person says that the game master of a game and each individual player should put in the same amount of work into a campaign. And they just wanted to start a discussion about that the game master and each individual player should put in the same amount of work. They said, I dislike GMing a campaign where it feels like players only show up to be entertained. I want to run a low prep system for my group, but unfortunately they are not those kinds of players, that they need, some hand-holding, some guidance, and a lot of preparation in order to play. Mm-hmm. And they said they posed this discussion in their Discord, and that they got multiple reactions. That some people said, yes, you can divide responsibilities, and that other people said, no, it's really the game master's job. This is a great topic because it's all about group dynamics, group responsibilities, And we have actually done an episode in the past called The Game Master as Leader. And we've talked about what we think some of the responsibilities of a Game Master are. The Game Master as Leader, episode 20. That's what we're going to talk about today, is what we think the responsibilities of each player should be, and if we think that it's mostly the Game Master. Benjamin, you're the one who found this topic, so what have you got to say about it? What side of the fence are you on here?
I'm on the side of the fence that I say I agree generally with the idea that it's everyone's responsibility to make sure everyone has a good time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's no one's responsibility to ensure that I have a good time. Like, I need to put in the work. Like, if we were playing a board game, I wouldn't sit there and look across the table and say it's your job to make sure I have fun playing this board game.
Right.
Right. Now, I would expect you to follow the rules, follow the norms of our group. Don't be rude. Don't be a sore winner or loser. You know, the typical stuff that we all agree on as a group. But ultimately, it's up to me to make sure I have a good time playing this game. And I think once we switch over into role-playing games, a lot of people, like this poster says, switch over to it's the Game Master's job to make sure the rest of us have a good time. And maybe even in the back of their mind or subconsciously they're thinking, even at the expense of the Game Master's fun. And I agree with them that everyone should take some responsibility. Now, I will push back a little and say I don't think it's necessarily possible for everyone to do equal work. Mm-hmm. But
in a campaign.
Right.
Like, I feel like, I don't know, the conceit of a role-playing game, the thesis almost, is like there's an adventure that, I mean, it's kind of like a video game. One person creates the encounters and the world, and the other people are going to walk through it. If I'm taking a turn creating an encounter, then that means my character, you know, it's hard to separate my character and my knowledge of the encounter that I just created.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I think part of what you mean by it's not necessarily possible to do it that way.
Right.
Is that what you mean?
So, kind of an example of a way that a player who is not the GM can do a lot of work is, for example, in our mage campaign, once we had gone through the first game and we knew like what kind of group we were going to be, what our roles were going to be, you know, what kind of organization we were joining, etc. Mm-hmm. I found a bunch of spells that could work with my character's abilities, found some pictures of what my character would look like, and really worked to develop a backstory so that you, in this case, would have material. You know, you would know what all my abilities were and everything. Because I feel like, I can't control the world and I can't control the story, the missions you're going to send us on all that, and insofar as that's what the game is based on, you're going to end up doing a lot more work than I am. But I can certainly make sure that I'm upholding my end of the deal, that I'm prepared to play my character, that I know the rules that are associated with my character, that I have a game plan when I'm going to encounter certain types of situation, knowing what my character would do in those situations, and that's going to make the whole game go more smoothly. And the analogy, I think, would be if I bring a commander deck, I need to know the interactions that are likely to occur in my own commander deck. I need to have the tokens and the counters that my deck uses. And
yes, I totally agree.
So I think playing a role-playing game is the exact same. If you're going to build a warrior, a barbarian or something, then know which dice you're going to need, know what types of attacks you do, and be ready when you get into a combat situation. Know what your modifiers are. Just put some thought into it ahead of time, which is going to help you have more fun and the rest of the table have more fun, and it's going to relieve some work from the dungeon master.
And the other players.
If
they're like having to correct you on what your ability does and stuff like that, or look up rules for you.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. Randy, as our resident game master for our big D&D group, what are some thoughts you have here?
You know, agreeing with Benjamin that it's really not possible for a player I don't think it's possible for a player to do as much work as a DM can.
Yeah.
Now, I think splitting up roles to have like one person be in charge of scheduling helps, have one person who enjoys taking notes for the group helps, and sometimes if someone wants to be like the host and then all players bring a little bit of food, Like the other group that I was DMing for a while, all I had to bring was like my DM stuff. They provided food and snacks and everything. Like they did all that stuff, so I didn't have to bring anything.
Wow, you got pampered.
I know, yeah. They're making homemade focaccia bread and wild blueberries that they picked from some bushes near work out in the country. Yeah,
that is
like
crazy.
wild blueberry pie and stuff like that. I was like,
that's cool.
I was like, man, my other group don't do this stuff.
Oh man, we got to step it up.
No, y'all are fine because it's different. It's just different dynamics. I think if a player wants to be more passive, then like that's fine. Like if you don't want to do any prep between games, that's your choice. If that's the level of enjoyment you want. I like to think that I try to encourage y'all to do stuff, and it's like think of what your character wants to be doing. What's their goal? Like the more you put into developing your character and understanding what they want out of the game. So that, the more time you're putting in, not as much as the DM would, but you're putting in that extra time means that you're probably going to enjoy that character more because you're more in tune with them while playing. You know what their motivations are. You know what their boundaries might be and things like that. So if you want to get more out of it, put more into it.
God, Randy, I totally agree with what you're saying.
I want to highlight something I think Randy hinted at, but I want to make sure we all got it, that people doing equal work or taking equal responsibility in the game doesn't have to be about the game itself. So he mentioned food. Mm-hmm. He mentioned other people having materials available, other people being responsible for having the
hosting.
Yeah, for hosting. And I think that's a great way to split up responsibility in a situation where one person clearly has to do more of the work. So maybe don't make the DM host. Don't expect them to have pencils and chips and or anything else.
Yeah.
They are going to show up with all the things they've been working for weeks to prepare. Your job is to clean up, and your job is to bring the paper and dice, and your job, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So the players maybe are doing less game work, but doing equal or more work on other parts of the experience. And I think that's a great way to share responsibility.
That is something that I always appreciate so much, and I try to say it each time we hang out, but I don't know if I do, about Derek and Kristen. They have a lovely home, and they are always hosting for whenever we hang out. And they've always got that clean home with little smokies or some queso, ready to entertain, and that's something that I appreciate so much about them, because I know that keeping a clean house ready for guests, I know that's not easy because we don't do it.
Yeah.
So that is something that another player can do to ease the burden from the game master.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Benjamin, hit us with some words of wisdom about bringing new people to a group.
Yeah, so the whole purpose of having a group and playing these games is to build that connection and to have people that you have more than just a passing acquaintanceship with. And in order to build that network, a network of emotional support, a network to help you find jobs, a network to help you when things are falling apart and you need a place to stay during a hurricane, whatever that is, right? That network is only going to be built by growing your friend circle. And so what we talked about today is important for having a healthy social life. So I want to encourage you to do the hard things, especially if you're one of the many, many gamers out there who struggles with having a healthy friend group. Take that step out into trying to accommodate the norms of a group that's where somebody has invited you, and get to know some people and take that next step into a wider friend.
I really love that. The philosopher's back, giving great salient words of wisdom, and it's always exciting to me to be the new person introduced or to bring somebody in. That always kind of reinvigorates me. I've always been a little more extroverted anyway, and so whenever I meet a new person, I kind of get revitalized, and I love to just get to know somebody and ask more questions and get their opinion on stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, 78% of our viewers on YouTube are not subscribed. If you like what we're putting out, please hit that subscribe button. Hammer that bell just as hard as you can. Just punch your fist directly through the screen and smash that like button. And if you're listening to us on audio, sound off in the 5-star reviews, because every review makes it so that our podcast has a little more reach. Benjamin, do you remember the email change where people can contact us directly?
Yes, it is now mymythicalmeta@gmail.com.
New email, mymythicalmeta@gmail.com. Randy, if people want to become a patron, where can they find us?
Patreon.com/mymythicalmeta.
Yes, that's exactly right. Good job,
Hey,
Randy.
I got
I'm
it.
so proud of you.
You can write that down for me if you're going to call me like that.
It's up there.
It's on the outline. You can just scroll up.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Thank you so much for listening. And thank you guys for being my great friends. Adios.
Bye.
Later.
This episode was sponsored by Eldorado Gaming. Use the promo code META for 10% off your order. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. This episode was edited by me, Travis Konishek, and our intro and outro music is by Tyler Heath of the Oh Hellos.